What's up, everybody? Going to be joined very, very quickly by Greg from Wolf Brigade Gym. Had an excellent phone conversation with him the other day, and just a guy that I've wanted to talk to, wanted to learn from, and work with for a while. Casey actually knows him better than I do. Casey's been using his mace for quite some time, and then we just got to talking about a few things. I see him on here. What's up, Greg? Let me get you in here. Sorry, guys. I use a coffee cup as my.
Morning. How are
Hey,
you?
what's up, Greg? How you doing, dude?
Good. Thank you.
Thanks so much for being on here. I was apologizing to everybody because this high production studio I have here, I use a coffee cup as my phone holder. So
Well, I don't want to give too much away, but this is what I'm using to hold my phone.
how you doing, man?
Good. Thank you. You?
I'm doing really well. Had a good training session today, and to be completely honest, woke up kind of pissed off this morning. You know, like just there's so much stuff going on in the world today that I see and that I feel and that I want to comment on, that I don't comment on, that I want to be involved in, that I kind of have to sit back and realize that not everybody's had my experiences, not everybody's lived the things that I've lived, and sometimes it takes conversation that's not really possible to have. And just trying to navigate things, man. Trying to do a little better for myself, live a little better for myself, and then pay that forward. But wanted to talk to you, man, because you have got such an interesting gym. You've got such an interesting concept and a conviction about the way that you do it. And I wanted to talk about that because something that you have that I see so little of in the fitness industry is soul. You have real soul and a real message. So thank you for being here. Thank you for what you do. You have a small community, but it's loud, and I really like it. So
thank you.
Tell everybody that doesn't know who Greg is and what Wolf Brigade Gym is all about. Tell us a little bit there.
Thank you. Well, just a truncated backstory. I started riding BMX bikes when I was a kid, 11, 12 years old. Got into hardcore about the same time. And then down the road, 20, realized that some level of martial arts was going to be important for the path that I'd chosen. And so at that point, started realizing that there was a strength component to martial arts that I had no understanding of. So I moved out to California for a really great job opportunity in a bike company in January of 1999. And that's really kind of where my training journey began. I started doing better martial arts out there. When I was here in Rochester, I was doing Aikido at a post office, and I just realized quickly that although that's a wonderful art for a lot of people, it just wasn't for me.
Yeah.
And, so California really opened those doors. I was doing some karate, and it was good karate, but the strength deficiencies, the conditioning, the positioning deficiencies didn't show up yet because it was still just a little bit too specific.
Yeah.
Once you got into things like Muay Thai and grappling, it became obvious immediately that there were needs that I needed to meet that I did not have. And so that's kind of when I started getting into strength and conditioning is the early 2000s. And I was coming into that world from a really different perspective, and also one, as we talked about yesterday, one that didn't really romanticize gym life. Most of the people that hated me in high school were people that I now had to train with.
Yeah.
And so I needed to bridge that gap because even the people that weren't on the same philosophical page as us could still benefit from a lot of the things that we were learning, and I think a lot of the details that we were putting in play even way back then. So when it comes to developing what we have now, it really came from not necessarily being married to an implement or one particular strategy or anything like that, but just being really, really engrossed in physical culture and knowing that if you're doing one thing right, it's going to transfer to everything else.
Yeah.
But you have to attend to it, and there has to be detail orientation. So one of the things that it's still taking time to land, but I believe it's landing, is it's always confused me that people will obsess over percentages and schemes and times and all this kind of stuff, but very, very few will really obsess over the nuance of detail, or will really, really obsess over an accessory that's going to light a corner that something they were previously doing has not.
Yeah.
And then that's really the entire foundation of what we've built is really just kind of lighting these corners. We're just turning over stones that we've either found in ourselves that we need, or that we've seen in the market that it's just there.
Well, that's what we were talking about with the kettlebells being kind of a welcome addition to my training, because for so long, and again, I'm trying to expand my view and understanding of what strength is. For 20 years, I lived and died by this idea that strength was only maximum expression. It was not like the young lady that I shared on my page doing incredible gymnastics, doing weight on her back and doing all those things. I didn't even recognize those as strength. I saw those as flexibility or as movement or as, gymnastics. I did not say those things were strength, because the only definition for strength that I had was a number attached to a bar. So when I got to the kettlebell, and like we talked about with the muscle ups, my inability to do the muscle up was not lack of strength, lack of maximum strength. I could squat 800 pounds, I could deadlift 800 pounds, I could bench press 600 pounds. The inability to do a muscle up came because my shoulders stopped here. I could never get myself forward to create the momentum to then swing back. Same reason I was never going to be able to do a good snatch with a barbell, because every time that I would stop, it was above my head or in front of my face. I was never able to get that head extension through. So really, strength became a diminishing point of value for me at some level, because I was no longer fast, I was no longer able to endure, and I was no longer able to be flexible, because I was defining strength in one plane or three planes, as a squat, bench, and deadlift, but static movement. It was not, well, it's kind of an oxymoron, static movement, but stationary movement, where I'm in one place. And the kettlebells, a press here feels really good, but if you get out here a little bit, then it kind of kinks up. That thing is a checks and balances every single rep. And for a guy like me who spent probably 10 or 15 years of my life with no checks and balances, now to have an implement that is checking and balancing you at every turn, the kettlebells were a welcome addition. But you went even further than that. You came up with the mace, and that's where you really kind of jumped in.
We've engineered a lot of things with the mace that had not been engineered.
Sure.
Mace has been around for hundreds of years, and the romance that I found with the mace immediately was with these old DVDs called The Physical Body.
Yeah.
And it was just this really interesting dude that went to India and trained with a lot of these wrestlers, and just watching what they were doing and watching how their physiques were, and then watching the obvious power and coordination that they had, and also watching the minimalist tools that they had.
Yeah.
That resonated like a motherfucker to me, man. I was like, okay, I don't want to have to rely on someone having a ton of equipment or 1 million pounds of weight, or even undirected trying to get underneath that weight.
Yeah.
We want to make sure that they understand how to insulate themselves properly, so that it will both improve those maximal lifts, and it will also improve the baseline physicality that accompanies them. So with the kettlebell stuff, again, as we hit yesterday a little bit, we had reached, and I mean, I've gotten a little bit of flack for saying this, but it's just a fact, and I wouldn't say it if it wasn't. The reason that we re-engineered a lot of kettlebell stuff is that we had reached people's structural maxes with the current strategies and positions. So once we realized
they're
that,
after us, dude. You hear the choppers flying overhead?
yeah, is that what
they're after us, bro. We're talking about the kettlebell.
don't joke about the Twitter culture, man. They will come for you.
I know.
But
you created new planes of movement with the kettlebell, new ideas about the kettlebell, right?
Even positioning stuff. So what we realized is that, okay, if a 125-pound person can structurally and strength-wise swing a 125-pound kettlebell, but the size of the weight is the only limiting factor,
right?
We need to adapt that to make it possible, and we have. So we came up with different hand positioning. We came up with some different bracing strategies and stuff like that. And I mean, now we have quite provably the heaviest kettlebell lifters in the world, and that doesn't matter as much as it matters to the function of their lives, the function of their desired end result. And then the mace is just an extension of that. So we came upon the mace in, it was 2004, 2005. And again, it was an amazing tool, is an amazing tool, but it was relatively unrefined. The people who were doing that in India, because it was their lifestyle, they were doing it perfectly, but they were doing it perfectly in an intrinsic, inherent type of way.
Yeah.
They weren't detailing out mace lifting.
Right.
They were doing it because they were doing it since they was kids. So, so my detail orientation for training and martial arts and stuff made me want to obsess over the mace to optimize every single thing we can do with that. And there's a couple specific examples I can share with you if you'd like, but I mean, well, let's use the clearest one first. So our friend Jerem from Alaska is a competitive power lifter and a great one. And he was on his standard periodization for a meet almost 2 years ago at this point, and knew that he needed something more than he had in order to reach his aspirational goal.
Yeah. So
we tooled around together, and I put something together for him that really the only thing he added from his primary lifts, and the deadlift was his goal, is he removed squatting. He added heavy mace shovels and swings, some mace presses and some strategies that we only use, and then really heavy kettlebell swings. And his deadlift went up 100 pounds in 18 weeks.
Yeah.
And to me, like, of course, as it was with you, that's like a nonsense number.
Sure. Oh, absolutely.
And so the other thing that we found that was interesting, and we didn't even have this on our radar, is that he hadn't bench pressed at all, and his bench press went up 50 pounds. So to me, what that showed is that he had developed such excellent compensation patterns with the barbell.
Yeah.
He was able to perform this at the highest possible level, but that there was still something left on the table because he hadn't lit every single corner.
Yeah, man.
And I mean, man, that's just, if there was really a short encapsulation of what we do and what we try and do, it's finding things that others aren't going to find so people can be better than they think they can. And that's it.
Well, I think it's just something that I think it's, and I'll tell you this, I had some conversations with some of the Russian lifters, and, you know, when we were competing with one another in Australia, when we were competing with one another in Tasmania, I had the conversation with these guys, and I almost thought they were bullshitting me. You know what I mean? I thought that they were telling me half-truths or things that weren't necessarily on the up and up, because we were competitive. We were competitive with one another, and you don't want to always tip your cards, but they were. And I saw Andrei Milanichev, who this was in Capo in 2013. He was 258 pounds in August in Australia or in Tasmania. 258 pounds. He had been 300 pounds earlier in the year. He said that he takes like 2 to 3 months off after his competitions, does only like plyometric stuff, proprioception type stuff, and he eats really clean. Fast forward from August to February, he was 328 pounds, I believe, or 330 pounds, and then set the total at 2458, which is the biggest total of all time at Raw Unity. And I began to look at it a little more differently after that. Like, okay, they really do step away. They really do address all the other things, because he was never going to be deficient in the squat, bench, or deadlift. He had purified those movements over 20 years.
That's right.
So, you know, like so many of the guys that reach just a paramount level, they're the ones that are over here in the corners doing things, looking for those, like the 1 degree of separation, the 1 degree of improvement. Maybe that's taking the barbell away for a while. Maybe that's doing kettlebell work. Maybe that's doing mace work. Maybe that's doing sled work at a different level or a different variation. Maybe that's ballet. Maybe that's yoga. Maybe that's swimming. I mean, Mariusz Pudzianowski, world famous for talking about swimming as his cardio. He would swim a mile before training, and then he would swim a mile post-training. He's like, you don't have to do a whole lot more than that. Plus, it's good for your body.
That's right.
A 300-pound man who's constantly compressed because of his body weight then gets in a modality where his body weight is diminished somewhat, and he can move more freely. Swimming is amazing. I never swam as a powerlifter. I swim often now.
Yeah.
And all of these things that I think were more so wrapped up, not so much in education of the barbell, but defense of the ego, defense of my masculinity.
Well, it's the truth. And I mean, what, you know, based on what you just said, the next example I'll give is right now my only private training client is a professional baseball pitcher named Rob Cimarano, and
pretty good ball player.
He's an older guy, but he's somehow his age is reversing.
Yep.
And we met a while ago, and you know, to his credit, I mean, he's exactly who you just talked about. He reached out cold. It was just an email saying, "Hey, I found this. It's fascinating to me. I always want to be better. What can we do?" And we started talking. And this is a person who is at the top of the food chain and is only getting better. And I can tell you, almost in the same nonsense way that the numbers from Jerem, in the last 4 months, nearly 5 months, we've added some details to his training, because that's the other thing that's missing. And I know you know this, but there is nuanced adjustments that most people are not making unless the eyes on them truly know what they're looking at.
Sure.
And that's a big deal. So he would be sending me videos of stuff that he's been already doing, and we would retool something a little teeny tiny bit, and all of a sudden it would be heavier, it would be more powerful, it would be more organized. So then what we added to him was, so he doesn't, with all the quarantine and everything too, he didn't have access to his primary training facility. So he got a 12 kilogram mace, and he got a 106 pound kettlebell. And so in addition to the big three and his actually skill days of actual baseball, he added mace swings, mace front pendulums, heavy shovels, short shovels, which is essentially a kettlebell swing with a mace that's really good for people that are working in like a unilateral plane.
Yep.
And then heavy kettlebell swings from both the standard grip and our pistol grip, and things like that. And this dude has gone from like an animal into like, I mean, and I've been sending some of our people the videos he sends me, because I respect so much when someone is at the absolute pinnacle of their field and they still know there's more there. Well, and I can't wait till he throws the baseball, because his goal with training with us at all is he could always throw 98.
Yeah.
And he wants 103.
Sure.
And watching him move, and even watching the travel that a better and a more powerful squat has gotten his leg in the upswing.
Yes.
Fucking, I mean, this guy's going to throw through a wall. I can't wait.
Well, you know, it's one of those things that you talked about. We kind of touched on it yesterday, but people are looking at me saying, "How have you changed? You've changed so much. You've changed so rapidly." I introduced an entirely new stimulus to my body through the kettlebell work. So let's back up and let's really analyze the statement of what I'm saying. People are recognizing a change. People are recognizing a physical change, an emotional change, and whatnot. I think that goes hand in hand with the idea that I'm not just training myself with an implement. I'm also continuing my training after the session is over. 23 hours beyond the training with an implement, I'm still a human. I still have to ask questions of myself. I still have to evolve, improve my thinking, train this just as much as I train this, and train my muscles. So beyond that, this is new stimulus. These are new planes of movement. These are new contraction points. These are new recruitments of muscle fiber in new ways. So I think by default, my body has conditioned itself to welcome training. But then you add in the spectrum of, okay, well, I realize that my hydration is a lot more important. I realize that breathing is a lot more important. I realize that sleep is a lot more important. So when I start doing the full spectrum approach to my life, the training gets enhanced systematically just because of all these other areas working better. And then you add the corner work, you know, the kettlebell stuff that's new. It's a recipe for progress. And I mean, it's not magic. It's not anything super creative. I mean, Terrence will tell you that. He's very simple in his approach to my training. I'm just doing everything to be conducive to that end so that my training works as best as possible. Whereas before, it was go train as hard as you can, go eat as much as you can, go do whatever you want. I was just a lifter for the hour and a half, 2 hours that I was in the gym, and then I was whatever else. Now it's like I'm striving to be a healthy, capable human. That's a totally different approach.
Forever.
Forever.
I mean, so the phrases we use for that are global linear progression, and permanent linear progression.
Sure.
So it's not relegated to like what we think about it as a larger purpose, not the singular action.
Yeah.
So of course, the purpose is to get stronger, but not singularly stronger. And again, referring back to yesterday, I mean, a lot of our people have really excellent conventional barbell lifts and numbers. We lift barbells all the time. We lift them heavy. We lift them well. But we also lift bases and kettlebells heavy and well all the time. And the soup that we've made with that is a really delicious soup, man. We've got some people that are as physically talented as anyone that I have ever seen train.
Yeah.
And that's not lip service, because we bring people in and we try and share as much as we can and all this kind of stuff. And even remotely, we're finding similar results. And man, it's exactly what you said. It's details that people haven't found or haven't thought about yet, you know?
Well, and I think the best thing that can come from conversation like you're having, the actions that you're taking with your gym, and you're seeing more coaches gravitate to this, but I think the modern strength coach moving forward, 2020 plus, I think it's, you know, like you said, it's been building for a while in yourself, but I think the modern strength coach is going to have to be detailed so much more than just in reps and sets, X's and O's. There's going to be, aspects of psychology. There's going to be aspects of, spirituality. There's going to be aspects of sleep, nutrition. I mean, we should know these things, and we get the glossy version of it, like sleep is important, hydration is important, those kind of things. I think moving forward, the coaches that kind of pull away from the pack are going to be like yourself, that are looking at this person. Okay, here's a pitcher that throws 98 miles an hour. There are so many coaches, myself included, I put myself, that would have raised my hand if he threw 100, and I would have said, yes, we got it. We got him improvement. That would have been it. I wouldn't have said, man, how are you feeling after that 100? How are you feeling after that? And he's like, man, I feel like shit.
Yeah.
But after he throws 98, what if he feels good? I just got a result that I wanted and I needed to perpetuate my business, but I didn't make him better. And I think the modern strength coach, the coach moving forward, is to care more about the person, more about their feeling with what they're doing. And listen, I know this gets into that touchy-feely, uncomfortable stuff for a lot of people, especially coaches. They want hard charges. They want grit. They want teeth gnarling, that kind of thing. And I do too. Don't get me wrong. I am all about that when it's time. You don't have to space 24 hours a day.
Yeah. Well, and the other thing is you don't have to sacrifice one for the others.
Right.
So maybe the only flack that we get on
a coffee cup is fucking me up so bad. I'm sorry.
Here, I'll send. This is in the mail for you. I've got it.
Maybe I should have drank the rest of the coffee. You know what I mean?
We get flack sometimes because people that perceive you as some sort of like paralysis by analysis type, like feel goodery.
Yeah.
And the truth is, it couldn't be more the opposite of that.
Right.
Our group classes are very significantly challenging. They're structured differently. And again, something we talked about yesterday that was fun to think about and talk about is the fact that I've constructed Wolf Brigade like a counterculture movement. Yeah. Like a band or a brand that just happens to be extremely excellent at teaching strength and conditioning. And so all those elements of mindset and preparedness outside of the gym and everything like that, that's on the table at the beginning, because without that, it's just jocks in the gym, and that was just never appealing to me. Sure. So
I tell people just for reference, because I don't want people to mistake, and this is something that I wasn't fully clear on too about your gym. Obviously you have clients online and it's bigger than this, but inside your actual tangible gym, this is what I want to do. I want to empower the guy or the woman or the leader in their culture or in their community that's saying, yeah, but I can't get 200 members. Yeah, I can't get 100 members. How many members do you have at your gym?
Maybe 45, and that's pre-COVID.
Yeah. And you're doing it, and you're actually impacting change and culture and the betterment of people,
Our retention rates are great once people stay long enough to realize why they're there. Yeah. And the phrase that we use to combat that is, we want someone that wants to be here, not just somewhere.
Right. Oh, dude.
So in this modern culture now, especially, and not to pot shot CrossFit, but a lot of people just want to be in a CrossFit gym.
Sure.
They like how it looks, they like how it feels, they like the expensive stuff and whatever. And while I understand that, it's like walking around a car dealership I can't afford. It doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to be productive or right for me. So that level of assessment is something that we've of course, like that's a small contingent of people that understand that. But once they're in, I mean, man, like I can't wait for you to come visit at some point and see some
I
of
can't either.
have. I mean, we've got people who are 50s and 60s doing stuff that at my absolute best I could never have even come close to, you know. And so it's the idea that all of the negativity and all the positivity and all the detail has convened and is able to make a 60-year-old dude that can do 103-pound Turkish get-up is I mean, man, that's the end of the story.
I can't do a 103-pound Turkish get-up stuff.
I never have. And
Yeah.
To come back to your ego point for a minute, if my ego was not firmly in check, I would never walk into that gym again, because I get outperformed by girls that are 100 pounds less than me on a daily basis. And all I attribute that to is the fact that we've actually managed to construct something that makes sense and that is provable on any type of body. It's provable on a professional baseball pitcher. It's provable on a professional Muay Thai fighter, provable on a professional BMX bike rider, and then it's provable on a 60-year-old dude that never strength trained until he found us.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, I think that you just touched on a sentiment that I think encompasses more than just training. You said you want people that are there, not just wanting to be somewhere. How often does that trickle into our relationships, our jobs, everything? You know, like
how much time do you have on Instagram?
Well, exactly. You know, it's like, yeah, I just want to be in a relationship. I don't care if it's a good one or abusive or whatever. I'm in a relationship. Yeah, check that box. I don't care about, you know, it's like we consistently lower our standard or even don't explore what we're actually seeking. How many people say, I want to go to a gym? They go sign up to the closest gym nearby rather than saying, okay, I want to go try this gym. And then I want to try this gym and this gym and this gym, and finding a gym with an ethos that might be more convicted than you are at that moment and might be able to get you over the threshold of, God, I hate the gym. God, I hate training. God, I hate myself. God, I hate all this. And then you find a place where somebody's like, that's cool. I hated myself once too. Or that's cool. I'm, you know, whatever it is, if you don't find that pairing that fits, it's just going to be this constant negative in your life. So of course you're not going to find the angles that work.
Well, I mean, we lump it under the concept of assessment.
Right.
So what we expect of people, and when we bring new people in for training, everyone goes through our curriculum priorities list. You know, you're an animal. I know your history as well as anyone, and you would come in our gym and you would go through our curriculum priorities list, and we would find something to improve. We would find something that's already great, and there's value to all of that. But the assessment that people need to do before coming into a place like ours is what is your actual goal? You know, if your goal is to be seen at the gym and to do as little work as possible so that you can get home and watch Netflix, well, we're not going to be the place for you. That's not going to be a good fit. But if in their personal assessment they realize that what they want to be is the strongest member of their family forever, so that they can protect themselves, stay healthy, enjoy themselves, clear out whatever cobwebs are in here, and do so on a really kind of consistent basis with great people, then it will be a good fit. And then the assessment continues once they're in the room. So we're really, really big on self-assessment in training.
Yeah.
We want to address class, narrate the board, and then a successful class to me is if I can shut the fuck right up for the next 50 minutes.
Yeah.
And if I can't, then that's okay. And I know what to say and when. But if you've trained people great on the outset, you don't have to yell and scream at them every day because they're assessing themselves. They're working on it.
Yeah.
And that gives that same empowerment that you were just touching on too, which is you're actually learning a craft. You're not just performing a task. And we I don't know, we love that notion. We love the fact that when people don't have access to equipment, or when people are in the rain, or they're tired, or they don't have the right shoes, they're still gonna pull off their training. They're still gonna make progress.
Yeah, that's kind of like today. I was watching it rain, and I was thinking, man, I ought to go run before we talk. But now I realize it's sweltering and it's getting hotter, so I'm going to save the run for after. But I do know that is something that from my past, I used to resist the heat at all costs because I was 350 pounds. I couldn't walk outside and just say, oh, this feels great without sweating. So now I kind of put myself in those heat-induced situations, a lot of sauna work, a lot of I do the cold therapy too. But like I like to train with the weights a little bit earlier in the morning so I can kind of take my time and warm up as I need. But on my runs, I typically love them to just be scorchers. I love to suffer when I'm doing it because I tell myself, this is the distance. This is the gap. I can do this and I can thrive in this right now. But that doesn't necessarily mean that everyone is going to willingly do this at the same level that I will. Like, I want to run when it's the worst, you know? I want things to be the hardest for me so that if I'm ever called upon them at any other given time, I've already expressed myself in the hardest conditions.
Well, I mean,
I don't want this to be casual.
Man, I mean, and one phrase that I've never liked is the notion of falling to the level of your training. That's not a concept that I ask. I do not accept. I want people to rise to the level of their training because training should be good enough that they can. And like I mentioned yesterday, also like, we train a lot of law enforcement, and we train good ones. If cops are dicks, they don't stay there because we don't want them. We don't care. I don't romanticize. I romanticize them as protectors. If they're not going to protect, then they're not an authority. They're a liability to me. And so when they come in, they have the right mindset. Their career excels because everything they're doing in that room, just like you said, with your runs, is harder than anything they're ever going to find out there. And that's really important to me, man, is I don't want to partially prepare anybody, you know?
Well, what you said yesterday, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I think it's a conversation point that people need to hear for so many people, for so many gun owners, for so many police officers. They think, okay, I've checked that box of self-defense, I'm good. And what happens, the problem with that rhetoric is that becomes your only choice for self-defense. You're actually talking about teaching people to be stronger, faster, able to defend themselves with their hands, able to be offensive with their hands. And then if it escalates to a point, but also teaching them to think through stress instead of seeing someone coming at them. Go ahead.
That's exactly on it. And we so the last point is the most important one. And we train in things called composure recovery drills. So we take a really simple thing, and after that simple thing, we do something that's not simple and probably less risky, but really, really tough. So like if someone's doing, say, a kettlebell swing, of course, it has to be organized, it has to be positionally accurate. But once that kettlebell swing ends, we'll put them in a tripod headstand, and then we'll pull them to the ground for 10 or 15 seconds, and then they'll do it again. And then as soon as they're done, they have to stand back up and recover like they have to do it again. And so the adaptation that your brain makes that everything is okay, even when things are not okay, man, I mean, especially for something like law enforcement, but really for anyone, man, that is crucial. We've got stories just like you do, I'm sure, with people that you work with and train with and stuff that they've pulled themselves out of some pretty hot fucking water simply by having their head right at a time when they didn't previously have it.
Sure.
And
that's the human experience, brother. It's Ascension. It's taking a valuable mistake today, analyzing it, assessing it, and building on it for tomorrow. Like, that's one of the scary things that I see right now is that we are limiting people's learning curve by damning them for their mistakes. Mistakes, even if I misspeak something right now, if I say something totally asinine and off the wall, and you're like, wait a minute, dude, and you call me on it, I'm only privy to the information that I have up until you correct me on it. So I learn from you, and then I move forward. It's so many things like this, and it's just like that in stress induction situations, because some of the special forces guys that I work with, one of the things that they talk about over and over and over again is the fact that they don't just get a combat mission and they're like, oh, here we go, we're going to go out. Maybe when they're on the ground, boots on the ground in the desert, but the 6 months prior to deployment, they're rehearsing. They're going through these things. They're getting used to the constant sound of gunfire, the constant screaming, the constant uptick of pulse and things like that, so that when it gets to the real situation, they're able to discern, this is the problem, that's a good guy, this is a bad guy. You know, that kind of thing right there, where people need to step back, practice these things, engage in these things. How are you ever going to educate and help people heal if you're just constantly screaming at one another? At some point, we need to step back, strengthen our arguments, strengthen our resolve, strengthen our ability to hear conflict, and then engage in a way that's constructive. This is going way off topic for strength training, but the strength training is the foundation for it. In sport, if I don't train to improve and to be ready to take those hits or to deliver those hits on the field, I'm going to be merciless out there. I'm going to be someone who comes at me and just, I am at the mercy of whatever I can do in that situation, unless I've trained for it, unless I know, okay, linebacker's going to come out wide, I'm going to engage him, intercept him here, and we're going to have a confrontation. Rehearsing those patterns, rehearsing those plays makes sense. We're going to talk about taking away the rehearsal capabilities for our police officers, the rehearsal capabilities for our soldiers, and then we expect the world to heal on both sides. Doesn't make sense. We need stronger individuals, more convicted individuals, but convicted in fact and belief rather than emotion.
Convicted in fact and belief. And the fact insulates the belief, and the belief insulates the fact. And
mitigates emotion.
Of course. When you've proven something and then you've been more than once, it's no longer emotional, it's factual. And then you can take a lot of the noise out of the equation because it happened, you know, and then that way, and I know we both relate to this, if you're in pain and you don't think you can make it, but you've already made it, then you make it. You force it. That's it. You know?
Well, I was just saying, I did a 26.2 mile, I did a marathon, and I did a 50-mile ruck very recently. And when I got to mile 27, it was kind of like the accelerator went off, and it was like, okay, this is new territory. You're good. You're fine. Yeah. And guess what? My knee hurt for 6 miles. And at mile 33, I was like, no, son of a bitch, you're only half or 2/3 the way through this. You got to get tough again. And I was able to keep going. But that softness, allowing that idea, I've done better, I've done enough. No, it was like I qualified that at 27 miles, because it was further than I'd ever gone before, that if I quit, it was okay. But then I was like, no, it's not okay. You set out for 50 miles. 27 might feel good, but you're not done. You know, and I think a lot of times we find ourselves in those situations, whether it be the gym, whether it be life, where it's like, and we forget all the lessons that got us to that point. You know, all the rigidity of thought for the first 27 miles went out the window when I was like, okay, PR, I'm good now. If this thing hurts and I quit, it's okay. No, it's not.
and the only reason that you were able to pull that off is because you've already pulled it off. If that was literally just walking out old and doing it, you would have quit at mile 27 100%. But you already know that fight, because you've already done it. And I think the trouble with a lot of this landing now and circling back 2 points that you made was everyone that disagrees with each other in this current ridiculous culture that we're in is somehow an enemy. Is actually it's actually like a progress deterrent. And it's just that people are no longer fighting respectfully, I guess, is a way to think about it. You know, everyone is either right or wrong, and they're going to beat you to death with whatever information they have at the tip of their fingers. But to circle back even further, they only have the information that's at the tip of their fingers. And I don't know, it's a really tough kind of culture to exist in. And it's really prevalent in strength and conditioning, but I just intend to make it less so. I mean, there's no reason that great normal people that do not have designs on a high level competition do not deserve as good of training as a professional baseball player or a Navy SEAL or anything like that. It's it's no less important for them. It's just different for them.
It is. And I think that a lot of times we forget that we don't have to have those outlets. I think that's a huge area of conflict for a lot of our soldiers that are coming home. They don't know where to expend that energy if it's not in combat or what they've trained for forever. I didn't know what the hell to do with myself for 3 or 4 years through injury, trying to figure out, hey, I'm not Brandon the strong guy anymore. I'm not Brandon the powerlifter anymore. No, man, I had never been those things, but I had relegated myself to those things because that's how people viewed me. So I attached myself to their, and this is something I want people to think about. How often do you compromise who you are, the greatness that you can become, because you settle for the label that somebody else gives you? Somebody else said, oh, Brandon, you're a great powerlifter. Brandon, you're a strong powerlifter. You're great this, you're great that, you're great that. Yeah, I also read books.
Yeah.
I also like to walk and take hikes, but I slowly evolved myself to that belief because that's where I got the most applause. That's where I got the most appreciation. It's not easy to get appreciation on a hill where you're hiking it by yourself. So it has to become intrinsic. And I think that's what we need to help people realize. As much as we have our heroes, as much as we idolize these sports stars and celebrities and so on, you need to start celebrating your life too. Not from a point of accomplishment, not from a point of high achievement, but from the point that you woke up today and you get the opportunity to do something with it. Like today, you actually have an opportunity and maybe somewhat an obligation to your species as a whole to get better. Human ascension is human evolution.
I think even that, like the trouble with that is, well, the trouble with that is that there are people that would argue with that statement.
Sure.
That there is an obligation to improve. And I guess that's a reason that, like, that's one thing that I don't wind down well. I'm not one of those high functioning people that's yelling at everybody all the time, but like, I don't relax well, and that's a shortcoming of mine. And part of it is just the fact that, my mind works in these circles where I'm always thinking about what I can do next. Not from like even like you said, like not from like a high achievement standpoint, but just, okay, so I know tomorrow this person are going to be in for training. What do we do with this particular thing? How do we adjust a particular lift to accommodate their personal limitations? How do I finish this project that I'm writing? How do I do this? And I guess for me, some of that balance is that challenge is understanding that sometimes it just gets all so cloudy that I'm not progressing the ways that I could because my mind is just trying to do too much at once.
That's the way I am too. And that's where journaling has helped me. I don't know if you journal much, but journaling has helped me a lot because, I systematically, to give you an idea of the way my brain is in the morning, I get up and it's like, do this, do that, do this, do that. It's like all discombobulated. And only when I write it down, then I can say, okay, this has to get done today. This has to get done today. This can wait till tomorrow, or that kind of thing. But I'm actually approaching my day to give it order rather than remain in the chaos. And I think I hear a lot of people, there is no answer to their questions. You know what I mean? They just keep asking questions. Not seeking solutions, not seeking the answers that will give them the peace so that they can navigate to the next one. And, it's problematic, but I've learned myself in such a way that I'm highly, highly, highly effective and get more done when I attack 2 or 3 things at once and get those done rather than trying to attack 10. Get done what I can do today. Maybe I get one more thing done this evening because I got these 3 things done early. So I've learned to systematically attack my life in such a way that it is conducive to, I set limits on what I know I can do today. I don't, because I just think there was nothing impossible if I worked hard enough for it, but sometimes it's working smarter for it,
And I think we've both been in those periods too, where the other side of the coin was in play, where it was just reckless abandon for the sake of progress. And I mean, I know also in similar ways that has probably benefited each of us, but it is not a permanent path, and it's not really a path to truest personal progress.
No.
I know that some of the things that I will put a feather in my cap on and say, okay, I've done this. when I look back on it, I could have strategized it differently, and it could have even had a more profound result. Maybe one that was either a little bit healthier or better for me, one that may have been better for someone else. But you don't know till you know, and I guess that's the value of other people fucking themselves up, is that then others get to benefit from it.
Well, dude, I think you and I can both share some fuck ups that would help people, and I think we've done some of that today. And just so people know,
Thank you.
Greg and I are going to podcast next week as well. I think this is a tandem of people, not only myself and you, but Casey, Brandon, Terrence. There's an opportunity here where we can have discussions with people who are looking for answers without cutting the throat of the other people. You know what I mean? We can have some pretty tough conversations.
Just to quickly pat Terrence on the back. So he and I communicated many years ago, and we haven't communicated recently, but I mean, that is someone that I just have a really, really high level of respect for. He was a pleasure to talk to. He was always just a really technical guy and a really mindful guy. And man, when I saw that you were working with him a few months ago, I mean, what a fantastic choice, you know?
Well,
so,
and I think the idea for me is, Terrence, one of the things that I think people, they have it's a very Americanized mindset that, like, if I stopped posting about Terrence today and I said, oh, I'm going to train with Wolf Brigade, you know what I mean? I think many people would automatically assume that, oh, something happened between Brandon and Terrence, or the training was no longer good, rather than saying, wait a minute, Brandon took this, reset his foundation point, and now Wolf Brigade might be the next evolution of that, and I might end up with Terrence 6 months from now again. But it doesn't have to be this negative thing. Like, we could all put our heads together. It could be Greg, Brandon, and Terrence. Like, how can my training evolve? How can it look?
I mean, people do what they've done, and they don't think about it, and that becomes all they've ever done.
Yeah.
And I've just never even understood that for a moment. And I think, as just to sign off with this, I guess, is as I talked about yesterday too, I think that's the biggest value of me not coming into strength and conditioning from strength and conditioning, is the fact that I never came into it with any type of walls or barriers up. I was just like, okay, how can we improve people and improve myself? And that was the end of the story. But anyway, looking forward to next week. And then, yeah, man, I really appreciate this today.
Well,
this was
I think just by the comments here and, obviously the feel of the way that we talked yesterday, the feel that we talked here today, I think this is the first of many, and I think this is a very valuable resource, not only for me to talk with someone like yourself, learn from you, but to share what you have to say, share what we have to say with the mass here at Peace, Love, and Meat, or through Wolf Brigade, however we can do that. I'm just grateful that we've connected in this space, and I can't wait to go a little deeper on the podcast. I just want people to see who you are, hear what you're about, so the podcast resonates more truly.
But vice versa, of course. I mean, you mentioned something really fascinating to me yesterday, and I'll leave your audience with this. I said, we've been in each other's orbits for a really long time, but you said it's way better that we met now.
Yeah.
And man, like, I thought about that all fucking night, because I agree with that. 3 or 4 years ago, I would have said similar things, but now the amount that I can bring to the table has changed every month for the last 12 years, and I don't see any end in sight. And so now is a great time for that. And thank you. And I hope people will get to watch this again on here, and then they get to watch next week. I can't wait.
Yeah, man. I just think that, like I've said a few times, and I think, I hope you can understand my point when I say this. I think we have to stop trying to save humanity and start focusing on making stronger, better individuals, and that in its own effect can save humanity. We can't throw a blanket out there that covers everyone. Yeah. You just have to cover your members at Wolf Brigade. I have to cover the people that listen to what I say, and hopefully somewhere down the line we all join on and we rise up together.
Well, we build it, they will come. And, the fact that they will come, but it's just going to take long, because it's not the easiest path. But we all know where the easiest path gets you, and that's pretty much nowhere. So, man.
Yeah,
all right.
I'm ready for the trail, and I got a sharp knife. So I appreciate you, brother.
Fuck. All right. Great.
Thank you so much, man.
So much. I'll see you next week.
Thank
And
you guys
thanks for watching.
tuning in too. This was a great one.
Thank you.
Appreciate
Thank
it.
you. See you soon.
All right, guys, that's it. Thank you so much. Look forward to the podcast.